Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining and enrolling in Chew School today. I'm really excited to have everyone here. And of course, a huge thanks to PFE for having us, Pet Food Express. They were one of the very first to actually graduate from Chew School. So they are certainly experts. So please feel free to tap into their knowledge and head into their stores. If you have any questions, of course, please type them in the chat. And then you can go ahead into the stores and ask questions whenever you're shopping for chews. Today's knowledge is designed to help you keep your pet safe during chew time, selecting the right chew, the right durability, the right size. And that goes for everything from their favorite toy to hopefully not your favorite slippers. But either way, this knowledge will go ahead and apply to that as well. So without further ado, we're going to hop into our Chew IQ lesson. So this is going to cover all of the aspects and all of the boxes that you want to check off when you're selecting your pet's next chew. We're going to start off by going over chew style. So every dog has a unique and different kind of strategy, pace, strength, and strategy when they chew. So we're going to cue up a video in about a second or so. And I want you guys to pay attention to how this dog is chewing on their toy. And while you're doing that, I want you to think of your dog or your pet, maybe a friend's pet, and see if you might find any similarities. So let's look at our first chew style, nibbler. All right, so that was just a short video there. Let's switch over here. So here we have our chew style as a nibbler. So like I said before, chew style is based on a dog's pace, strength, and strategy. So Nina here, Nina the nibbler, you'll see that she was kind of chewing that a little bit slow, just with the front of her teeth there, very gentle. Preferably, nibblers will chew in small bursts. They prefer to savor their treats and toys, and they really do little to no damage to their toys over time. Some nibblers prefer to snuggle their toys, so they may kind of enjoy the flavor for a little bit if it's something that's edible, but then they may take a nap and curl up next to it. So these will last for a really long time. Something to keep in mind as we see these chew styles is Nina was a pretty large dog. Size of your pet doesn't necessarily dictate what kind of chewer they could be. You could have a Great Dane, for example, that still is that nibbler chew style and won't do a lot of damage to their toys. So that is kind of our lower end of the spectrum chewer. So we're going to take a step up and we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to a gnaw. So you're going to see the difference here. We're going to cue this up now. And again, just pay attention to how our pup in the next video is chewing on their toy. Awesome. So that was Goldie the Gnar. And if we looked at the way that Goldie was chewing, you'll see that the chew was a little farther back versus Nina had just her front teeth. So Gnar, again, is a little step up. So again, still pretty relaxed. Gnars may take occasional breaks. They'll chew for a little longer time. As far as strength, pretty average. Again, a little farther back in the jaw. As far as strategy, they're going to gnaw on their chews for more extended periods, but still take a few breaks, but longer chew time there. And then over time, Gnars will cause damage to toys. So again, I just want you to think about your own pet. Now that we've seen two chew styles, definitely start to think, is one of those chew styles your pet or maybe a family member's pet? Again, these are going to factor into when you're buying your next chew or your next treat, how we keep them safe. And we're going to talk about that. So now again, we're going to take one step up. We're going to go to a muncher. So we're going to cue that video up now. All right, so he was a pretty cute little guy. As you can see, he was a puppy. We slowed down the video just a little bit to allow us to see more of his strategy there. But you'll see that Michael the Muncher in the video was using his paws. He was using them to kind of push down on the toy and get a bigger bite. He had his mouth wide open. Granted, he had a much smaller mouth than Goldie, who was a Great Dane. But he was using a little bit more of his body. You could tell that his pace was more persistent. Michael definitely did not look like he was going to take any breaks anytime soon. You saw a little bit more urgency there in his chew style. Strength, pretty powerful. Even though he's a puppy, you can see he was using his paws. He was tilting his head back. He was really leaning in, engaging more with that chew. Much different than Nina, right? She was just nibbling with her front teeth. Strategy, they're going to munch continuously with force and focus. So munchers are going to, when they get that chew, they're going to be zeroed into that, enjoying it, and they're going to have a little bit more power behind their chew. Just not so laid back, kind of enjoying it casually, wouldn't mind to walk away from it kind of thing. Damage, munchers are going to destroy the average toy in less than a day. So again, think about your pet. Does this sound a little bit more like them? I have at home a hound dog mix and a husky mix, and my hound dog probably falls into this muncher category. He's pretty persistent. He's got a lot of power. And then again, he will destroy the average toy in certainly less than a day. So we are going to now go to the top tier chew style, the Destroyer. So let's cue this video up and see if you guys can catch a difference. All right, so small but mighty. You could see that our friend Diane the Destroyer was using her whole body. She grabbed that little octopus toy. She was rushed. She was definitely not sitting back and relaxing there. Very enthusiastic. Typically, a Destroyer chew style is not going to take any breaks. They're going to be completely focused, really engaged with that chew or treat until it's completely gone or there is stuffing flying from their toy. This is definitely more like my Shepherd Husky personally. Their strength is going to be extreme. It doesn't matter the size of their dog. The size of the dog, they are going to be strong and they are going to have the strategy of full-bodied determination and power. So they may bite off chunks to inhale or gulp because they're just really enthusiastic. They get into it with their whole body. In terms of damage, you could tell in this video just by using her whole body, we would probably see some stuffing coming out of that octopus. In my house, probably within a few minutes and potentially here. So they're going to shred even tough chews in less than an hour. So a muncher, again, less than a day. In this case, with the Destroyers, they're going to go less than an hour for the average toy. Now, something to note here is what I've highlighted. So we know no breaks, but again, they may bite off chunks to inhale or gulp. It's really important. We're going to get onto size in a little bit, but keep that in mind. Those chewers that may go ahead and gulp and inhale, because then when it comes to chew safety, we really want to monitor for those types of behaviors. So if you think you might have a pet that falls into the muncher or destroyer category, make a mental note now, because we're going to get to some special tips for you in a few slides. So, durability. This definitely comes into play with chew style. So the first thing you want to know is, which chew style is my dog? So durability is the ability for a toy or chew to withstand a dog's chew style. So pace, strength, and strategy. A chew that is the right durability for your dog's chew style allows them to chew at a safe pace, making sure the stuffing isn't flying, or making sure they're not shredding through an edible chew so quickly that there's this small piece left at the end that they can just quickly gulp down, right? We want to make sure that they have some time where we can watch them and kind of, like a lifeguard, right? Monitor the situation, make sure it doesn't get out of hand too quickly. So if a chew is not durable enough, this is kind of a little game of Goldilocks here. And sometimes it's a little bit of trial and error. We'll go over some tips to kind of help guide when you're in the store. But if a chew is not durable enough, within minutes, your dog will be able to bite off large chunks or remove cloth and stuffing from that toy. These fragments can collect, and what happens is they can increase the risk of obstruction if they're swallowed. So in the case of stuffing, right, if they're really enthusiastic, they're pulling the stuffing out, and we aren't removing it right away, they can swallow it and it can get stuck along the esophagus possibly, or maybe in their intestines. It can cause a blockage, which we really want to avoid. For hard chews, maybe you have an antler or a horn or a no hide. If you have a really enthusiastic chewer and they're taking off pieces of a horn or antler, no hide, then what can happen again is that they can swallow that and it can get stuck along their esophagus, possibly if it's a little too large. Now, if a chew is too durable, I know we all want to find an indestructible toy. Believe me, I do as well. Unfortunately, what we commonly see with hard chews, so these are things like antlers, nylon blended toys. So they're going to be really hard. If you were to hit it against your knee, these types of toys would probably hurt. This is a material that is potentially too hard and can cause the teeth to crack or break off. So if you have Nina, so she's biting down, Nina the Nibbler, she's biting down with not too much force, just the little front of her teeth. These kinds of chews will probably be fine because she's not biting down with so much force where she could crack her teeth. But with someone like a destroyer or a muncher, they're really biting down with a lot of force. So there's more risk that they can damage their teeth. So again, if you have a muncher or destroyer, you really want to watch out for these toys that are too durable. Again, I know it's kind of like Goldilocks, but if you are seeing them really cramp down on those hard toys, you may want to find a happy medium and step down to something that's a little bit softer. Typically on the back of packaging, there's going to be a guide with antlers and those natural chews. You can actually look up, those are species specific. So a moose antler is going to be a little bit different than an elk antler, or even among different types of deer, there's different durability. But again, we want to make sure things aren't too hard here. Now, just right. If a toy is just right, it's going to allow your dog to enjoy supervised chew time at a safe pace. And always remember that no chew or toy is indestructible. I know this is difficult when we buy a toy. We want it to last forever, or even an edible chew. We want it to get a lot of chew time, but allowing your pet to get through that chew also allows them to earn that satisfaction, right? If they're too frustrated with something and they can never get through it, then likely they're going to lose interest anyways. So they do enjoy that reward of being able to shred something. So it's okay if that happens. We always want things to last forever, but in the case of chews, it's better that it doesn't. They want to have that satisfaction, and we want to keep them safe. So in terms of digestibility, so it looks like I had a little flip card here, but that's okay. So digestibility, myth or fact. So a lot of times when we're selecting a chew, we look for digestibility. So what that means is it refers to the process of breaking down food to allow the body to absorb its nutrients. So a lot of times we may think, okay, if something is 100% digestible, then it's totally safe. If my dog swallows a large piece of that chew, then it's fine. It's just going to dissolve. It's digestible. Everything's going to be good. Digestibility is more of a process than that, right? So digesting food starts in the mouth, right? And then it's a mechanical process as it travels down the esophagus, and then it's got to get to the stomach acid, and then it goes through the intestines. So there's a lot of steps to digestibility. So a dog should, one, never be left alone while chewing, no matter how digestible that chew is. Always, never should be left alone. Digestibility can suggest the chew is risk-free and doesn't require supervision, but regardless of how digestible a chew is, if a dog swallows a large piece, it could become lodged in the airway or esophagus. So say on Thanksgiving, you're really excited and you take a big old piece of turkey and you try to swallow that without really chewing. It's kind of what our dogs do when they're really excited about chews, right? Even though that turkey is digestible, it could get stuck along the way and not make it down to the stomach. So we want to avoid that as much as possible. So always supervise your dogs during chew time, no matter what the digestibility is. And if you see them putting chews in their mouth and maybe tilting their head back, or it's a small piece of chew that they're looking to swallow, definitely we recommend removing it. I call it the rule of thumb. Every dog is a little different, but if a chew is about the size of your thumb, you want to go ahead and remove it, because chances are if they swallow that, it's just going to be too big to make it all the way down to the stomach and go ahead and continue through that digestion process. Now, let's talk special chewers. So we have two dogs here. We have brachycephalic dogs and puppies. We'll start with brachycephalic. That is a crazy word that just means flat-faced breeds. It's literally what the word brachycephalic means, but I figured I'd give you a really fun word to toss into your Scrabble game. So why are these special chewers? Well, we have a Mastiff here. Other examples could be pugs, Cocker Spaniels, Tibetan Spaniels, French Bulldogs, all of those dogs with a shortened snout. What happens is, due to their physiology, coupled with their love of chewing, they are more susceptible to choking. They have a larger soft palate. Sometimes their physiology can partially obstruct their breathing. So we want to make sure to be extra cautious with these types of pups. And we want to go ahead and always size up. So always go a size larger with chews. We have a size chart that we're going to show you in just a minute. But again, always size up. If you have one of these dogs, you want to take a mental note to just be a little extra cautious. So still check off, make sure you know their chew style, make sure you're choosing the right durability. That all stays the same. Digestibility, again, stays the same. The only thing that's going to be different is if a chew says that based on their weight, you should select a medium-sized chew, you're going to go ahead and size up to a large-sized chew. A lot of these dogs have a wider mouth as well, which allows them to fit a larger piece in their mouth and go ahead and, swallow it. So we really want to watch for that and avoid that at all costs. Now, puppies. These are very unique and special chewers. Puppies under 6 months still have a developing gut, and they have really gentle teeth, But I wanted to go ahead and bring in our veterinarian, Dr. Chris Hansen, to explain a little bit more. So we're going to go ahead and queue up a video here. Dr. Chris is on our Ask Our Live series on Facebook every week. So let's get it from our expert, Dr. Chris.
Chew style and durability brings me back to my dog's puppyhood. Shoes, toys, you name it. At 4 months old, he went from nibbler to destroyer.
You know, Tasha, that makes sense because between 4 and 6 months of age, the puppies are going to lose all their baby teeth and get a whole new set of adult teeth. So they're really teething at that time.
Are there any safety tips to keep in mind during this phase?
Since their gut is also developing at this time, we recommend 3 steps for success. 1, we want to wait until 6 months of age to introduce hard chews to protect their baby teeth from damage. 2, we want to limit edible chews to avoid stomach upset while the gut is developing. Lastly, consider this recipe that's gentle on baby teeth and the gut. While they're teething on it, I do recommend that you hold the cloth for them. After they're done, please upcycle the cloth for house cleaning and certainly take it away from them if they begin to pull off any pieces.
All right. So as you can see, puppies, definitely a special chewer under 6 months. So under 6 months, puppies' guts are still developing. Like Dr. Chris said, their teeth are very small and fragile. You want to make sure you don't cause any damage. So for those chewers specifically under that age, just want to take a cold cloth that they can chew on. It's nice and gentle. And then as they age past 6 months, you can start to introduce things slowly. Here's the size chart I had mentioned earlier. So this is on the Choose the Right Size chart is on every package of No Hide chews. If you go ahead and buy those for your pets, every product should have some sort of chew recommendations. If they don't, just proceed with caution. You can use actually the No Hides in store as kind of a size gauge if you need to. But if in doubt, always size up. And if a chew becomes small enough to gulp down, it's time to go ahead and discard it and replace it. So you'll see here, we have 4 different sizes. We have sticks. No Hide sticks are for cats and for dogs, small dogs. We have our small, medium, and large, and they have different weight gaps associated. But if I have a little Chihuahua who's 10 pounds, so right on that line, but my Chihuahua is super enthusiastic, definitely a muncher or a destroyer type, then I'm going to go ahead and size up to that small. It's going to take them a little longer, which a win there. We get a little bit more chew time out of that, which is definitely awesome. Can't complain about that. But it's going to keep them safe, which is the most important. Same thing goes for medium and large dogs. If they're a muncher or a destroyer, size them up just to keep them safe. Make sure that chew doesn't get too small too quickly. So, So this slide is coming up a little odd right now in the presentation, but we're going to go through some of the different scenarios that you could run into when trying to choose the right size. So what if your dog's weight is on the upper end of the size category? We just touched upon it. Size up. If in doubt, size up. What if my dog is a muncher or a destroyer? Like we said, if in doubt, size up. It's always better to keep them safe. And then, of course, taking into account durability, you want to make sure that is something that you're monitoring, whether they're able to really shred through a toy in just a couple minutes kind of thing. Then we want to go ahead and get something a little bit more durable in that happy medium kind of Goldilocks zone. And then what should I do if I'm not sure which size to purchase? So here's where I always recommend checking the back of packaging for either edible chews or toys. But if you're not seeing any sort of information on, all right, if you have a 20-pound dog, buy this size or so on and so forth, then we always recommend talking to your experts in the store especially at Pet Food Express. They see a lot of pet parents come through and with all sorts of different types of chewers. So they may have a recommendation there in store for something that'll suit your pet. If not, you can also hop online and research the brands. There's some brands that kind of specialize in certain chew styles. So you should be able to find the right options there. And still, if you're not sure, maybe the websites are confusing, you can also always reach out to that brand's customer service and see what they might recommend from the company. So those are some options for you there. So always do your research before purchasing any sort of chew, and then always supervise to see how your pet is chewing it the first time that they're enjoying it. All right, so we just covered Chew IQ. So again, those check boxes when you buy a chew are knowing your dog's chew style, knowing the right durability, knowing if you have a special chewer, and then choosing the right size. And again, keeping in mind that digestibility does not mean no supervision. Always, always supervise. So now we're going to jump into the chew safety chapter. So here is where we're going to learn some of the things to keep in mind when they're actually chewing. You've gotten home, you have the new toy, the new chew for them. We always recommend supervising first and foremost. You're going to want to go ahead and monitor for their chew style. Are they gulping large pieces? Are they trying to swallow maybe large strips of a chew? If so, you want to go ahead and remove that chew and have them take a break. I get super enthusiastic about new things. So do our pets. So again, just have them take a break. Maybe reintroduce it the next day. See if they're still a little overly excited. If so, maybe we might want to choose something different for them. Discard. So immediately dispose of any small fragments of a chew that they may be able to gulp, but they're really too large for them to swallow safely. Any sort of cat toys around the house, stuffing, kids' toys, Legos, those sorts of things. We want to make sure that we're puppy proofing or pet proofing our houses and just making sure there's nothing that is one hazardous for them to eat. The first thing that comes to mind is batteries or, raisins, those sorts of things that we know they definitely shouldn't eat because they're toxic, but also the choking hazards, things that they shouldn't be swallowing. And we want to introduce every chew slowly. So in the case of a no-hide chew or any edible chew, we want to go ahead and give them a little bit the first time and then see how they do. With the no-hide chew, we recommend introducing maybe a quarter of that chew and then removing it. You can actually wrap it and put it in the fridge. It can stay there for about 3 to 4 days, just like typical leftovers. Before discarding it, but you can go ahead and reintroduce it the next day. What this means is just making sure that they're digesting it okay and that they're not allergic to anything. We do this a lot with food, but again, edible chews are food too. So we want to apply the same concept there, introducing slowly. Especially with puppies, by the way, when they kind of transition from that 6 months to 7 months, it's not like this clock that goes, okay, they're 6 months old today. Their gut is fully developed, full throttle. Let's introduce all the edible chews. Again, introduce slowly. Their gut still may be developing a little bit and finding a balance there. So save yourself and then your puppy from tummy aches and introduce slowly. And then, of course, remember that any object that enters their mouth can become a choking hazard. So always supervise chew time. Supervising your pet too, just the reasons why we do it is, again, it allows you to intervene if something does go wrong. and establish an emergency response plan. So we're going to go over exactly how to administer the canine Heimlich and actually intervene if something happens. So while we do that, go ahead and think about who to share your plan with. Do you have family that may watch your dog if you go on vacation, or friends, dog walkers, groomers, pet sitters, maybe local community groups? Maybe you're in a training class and you do dock diving or disc throwing or whatever that may be. We want you to share this information to help keep others safe. Of course, having our pets choke on something is terrifying. We definitely don't want to think about that, but having the knowledge and having a plan that you're secure in and you know how to respond can help make that situation, if it does happen, a lot more smooth and allow us to respond quicker, which is the most important thing. At a recent show, I was actually talking to an associate from a store, and they had a situation where they were in the store. A pet parent had just bought their dog a cookie, and they were so excited to give their pet this cookie. And they reached down and they gave their dog the cookie, and they started to chew on it, and all of a sudden they actually began to choke in the store, which is something we hope never happens. But again, it happens with us. It can happen with our pets. So the store manager of the store had just happened to see a post on Facebook with the steps of the canine Heimlich a week prior. So this was something that was just perfect timing. And that store manager was actually able to intervene. She administered the canine Heimlich and was able to restore breathing there in the store. So again, just an example that things can happen that we don't expect. But having had that knowledge of the canine Heimlich saved that pup's life. The pet parent was so happy. Of course, the dog was able to go back after decompressing, of course, go back to enjoying their chews, and then live a long, happy, healthy life. So keep that in mind as we go through the next slides. So what is the difference between a trachea obstruction or an esophageal obstruction? So trachea is going to mean if that is obstructed, that means their ability to breathe is obstructed. So they're not able to breathe. This is a true emergency. This is something where we want to go ahead and intercept immediately to get them to be able to breathe again. This is the case that happened in the store that I just shared about. So what we're going to watch for in this case is bulging eyes. If a dog looks panicked, maybe they're holding their mouth open, they're gasping or coughing, retching, so they're making some really abnormal noises for your pet. We want to go ahead and tune in for those. Maybe they're not able to make a sound. So the larynx here you'll see is the voice box. So if there's something that's obstructing their airway a little bit farther down, it can obstruct the larynx. So they're not able to make any sound at all. Or maybe that sounds may sound kind of like a loud snore. And of course, if they're unable to breathe. So that is something, if you see those signs, you're going to go ahead and step in immediately with the canine Heimlich that we're going to show you. You know your dog best. So sometimes you may have a dog that, makes a little weird sounds normally, or, you know them best. So if something is abnormal, that's where you want to step in. Esophageal or a throat obstruction. This is something, like I said, where your dog swallows something that a piece of a chew, and it's a little bit too large to make its way all the way down the throat and then through the rest of the digestive system. It could get stuck somewhere, or if it's a really large piece of chew, and it has some thickness to it, sometimes the stomach won't break it down, and it will have to break down in the intestines even further. And that's where you can also get an obstruction. So keep an eye out if your pet is swallowing a large piece of something, because you're going to want to monitor for these signs. So they may, again, have bulging eyes, look of panic. Even though they're still able to breathe, it may hurt somewhere along their throat. They may have a loss of appetite. So maybe their next meal, you notice that they're just not really hungry. They could have excess salivation, difficulty swallowing. If something's blocking their throat, they're not able to swallow something, so they may also regurgitate it. In cases like this, you may have your pet, after they chew, maybe they do eat, but then they'll regurgitate kibble that is undigested. That's a sign that it's not getting down to the stomach. It's not digesting. So there may be something blocking it from getting down there. It could be a piece of that chew that they swallowed. Persistent gulping. If something's stuck, they're going to want to continue to try and get it down. So they could be gulping, or they could be lethargic. That's another thing to watch for. Again, this is really where I want to emphasize digestibility, because there is this conception that, right, if a chew is digestible, they swallow a piece, it's going to dissolve. But if it doesn't make it through the digestive system, here's what we have to watch for. We want to make sure that it's not stuck anywhere. All right, so here's our emergency response plan. So this is the first step. So if your dog begins to choke, again, this is their airway is obstructed, you're going to want to first start by sweeping the mouth. So you're going to go ahead and open their mouth calmly. I know it's hard, but you don't want to freak them out when they already may be a little panicked. So approach them calmly and with caution. You don't want them to bite as a fear response. So again, being as calm as you can. You're going to open their mouth and you're going to try and visualize the back of their throat to see if you can actually catch what is stuck in there. So you may be able to see that piece of chew or toy when you open their mouth. And then you're going to go ahead and sweep. So you're going to take your finger and sweep in the back of the throat. And hopefully you can go ahead and just grab that piece of chew or toy. And then at that stage, you all can take a breath and breathing is restored and you're good to go. So that is the first step, sweeping the mouth. Open, visualize, and sweep, and stay as calm as possible. If that doesn't work, we're going to move on to the canine Heimlich. So there is 4 steps to the canine Heimlich. The first step is going to be to use gravity. So you'll see the dog here is a large dog. So we kind of have him in the wheelbarrow position. And that is going to allow gravity to go ahead and knock that piece of chew or toy out, and hopefully it'll fall. And at that point, hopefully breathing is restored. If not, you're going to move on to the second step of the canine Heimlich. You'll recognize this as sweeping the mouth. So use gravity, then sweep the mouth. Again, that's a step of the canine Heimlich. So we just checked that off. So you're going to open, you're going to visualize, and then you're going to sweep with your finger and try and pull whatever it is out if you can. If that doesn't restore breathing, you're going to go ahead and move on to abdominal compressions. And just like with our version of the Heimlich, you're going to go ahead and compress farther back, that kind of softer part of the stomach behind the rib cage. And hopefully that will force the chew or toy out and restore breathing. If not, you're going to move on to the 4th step, which is going to be a sharp blow between the shoulder blades. So use gravity, sweep the mouth, abdominal compressions, and sharp blow between the shoulder blades. All of those in tandem are going to help to remove or dislodge whatever they're choking on. It's important that you note these steps down because this can really save a life. When it comes to using gravity, if you have a smaller dog, it may be easier to just scoop them up and hold them upside down versus a large dog that you can't pick up. You could just lift their back legs. So again, smaller dog, you can just lift right up and hold them upside down. You can also do abdominal compressions a little bit easier with a small dog as well if you're holding them. If for any reason, again, the sharp blow between the shoulder blades, if for any reason you need to do that a second time, please do. If that second time of the sharp blow between the shoulder blades does not work, immediately head to the vet. Have somebody, hopefully you have somebody there with you that can drive. But again, if breathing is not restored in that first response, then please take your pet to the vet immediately. Don't wait. Of course, if they're not breathing, many of us are not going to want to wait at all. But again, drive safe, head to the vet. Hopefully that these steps have restored breathing. And if they do, allow yourself and your pet time to decompress, and schedule a follow-up vet visit. Just to make sure that everything's okay, they didn't injure themselves in any way. Follow up and then share your knowledge and experience with others. So if you're able to restore breathing, take the knowledge that you were able to use to go ahead and do that and share it with others, to allow them to be able to do the same thing if that ever happens. Again, this section doesn't replace the advice or care of a veterinarian, but when something happens and you're the first one there, hopefully these steps can resolve that issue pretty quickly. So now I'm going to ask you guys in the chat, we just went through the 4 steps of the canine Heimlich. I'm going to have you guys type in the chat what those 4 steps are. We have some extra chews that we want to be able to give away for you guys for coming today and participating. So drop those steps in the chat, and then we'll choose some winners at random, and we'll send you guys a no-hide chew. So again, the 4 steps of the canine Heimlich. That wouldn't include the sweep the mouth, which was kind of like that first intervention. It would be everything after that, those 4 steps. All right, so we're going to head to one last video with Dr. Chris, and then we'll open up for our Q&A.
Congratulations on attending Chew School.
You now have the knowledge to create a safe chew environment by choosing the right chew, supervising, and knowing how to identify and react to an emergency.
Your pet's health and wellness is of paramount importance. To learn more, join me along with special guests on Facebook every Thursday at 6 p.m. for my Ask the Vet series.
And remember, choose joy and choose no hide.
Hello, everyone. Again, thank you so much for joining. I'm in the Q&A here. So if you haven't asked anything, please feel free to send that now. So one of the first questions, how can you prevent your dog from developing bad chewing habits? For people frustrated with being unable to leave their dog alone with a toy, chew, etc., while they clean or do chores, what is your best recommendation? Can training fix a destroyer's behavior? Or is this a personality trait that should be embraced rather than corrected? So this is a really great question. Sometimes what can happen is a little bit of resource guarding. So if you have more than one pet in the house, or perhaps your pet is adopted and we're not sure of their background, what can happen is that they are really enthusiastic to eat that chew as quick as possible so no other pet can have it. Or maybe they're just not used to having chews, so they just are, again, really enthusiastic. So if it's the case of resource guarding, we recommend partnering with a trainer that can kind of identify that behavior and then help find solutions and make them a little bit more comfortable. If they're insecure in the home, the know-how to help, address that behavior. So yes, training can definitely help in that case. But sometimes the dog is just really strong. They could be a destroyer because they just have a very strong bite. This is something that we can't necessarily fix. It's just our pets, so we should certainly embrace it. And it's just a matter of finding what brand of edible chews or toys work best for them. No hides work great for my pets. Westpaw toys, I love those. They actually don't have stuffing. So sometimes we can find those toys that just work well. My Shepherd Husky will pull stuffing out of anything in 5 seconds. So finding toys without stuffing makes that experience safer. As far as leaving our pets alone with a toy or chew, unfortunately, this is just something we should never do. If we're cleaning or doing chores, at least make sure that they're in the same room as you and you are keeping an eye on them and you're able to hear them chewing. So again, in the same room, you never want to leave them separately and not be able to keep an eye. Similar to, right, kids, when we have kids, we want to make sure that if they're like having a snack or a popsicle, a lollipop, that sort of thing, we never walk out of the room because they could fall or they could choke on something. So applying the same aspect there. I hope that helps. Is there an ideal length of time you should allow your dog to chew during a session? So this really depends on their chew style and whether or not they're getting too enthusiastic, but really not so much. We do want to give them breaks for sure. We do recommend giving chews a little bit spaced out between meals. So if, say, you give a chew and it's, I don't know, maybe around our lunchtime, but they don't eat their dinner until, let's say, 5 o'clock. So you give the chew to them at noon, they eat at 5 o'clock. And if they are a chewer that just kind of takes a long time, I may pull the chew away maybe an hour or two before dinner time, because you want to let that chew digest and get through their system before they eat dinner, because, well, one, they may not be hungry at that point. You don't want to spoil their dinner. But also, if they're then eating a large meal, the body has to digest all of that as well. So the chew and then all of that kibble or whatever you're feeding. So that's where I recommend kind of shortening that chew time. Same with after dinner. You want to go ahead and space out when you give them their next edible chew to let their body digest dinner before digesting something edible. What's the best way to take a chew away from a pup? This is a really great question. Again, we want to monitor for signs of resource guarding. This is something that you may need to defer to a trainer or behavioral specialist. But the best way to take a chew away is to distract them. So they really love this chew, right? So they're going to be so focused on that chew that's probably going to upset them and that could trigger resource guarding in the future. So what you want to do is, maybe if you have another toy that they really love, a stuffed animal, maybe you have training treats around. I always keep a treat bag. So what you can do is call them. So be like, my dog's name is Charlie. So Charlie, come here. And he loves treats. So he's always going to run to me. And so that way I can, what I do is I kind of scatter the treats on the ground. So I'll have him come to me and I'll say, good boy, go get it. And I'll put the treats so they're kind of scattered around. So he's got to go and grab all of them. So he's focused now on these new treats. So I can go ahead and remove that toy. And at that point, he's forgotten because he's so distracted with these treats. Or you can do a trade. So I'm going to take this here, but I'm going to give you toys immediately. And I'm going to say, good boy. So I take that chew and then I immediately reward him and say, good job. So he knows he did a good thing. But always with puppies, one of the first thing you want to teach them is the command of dropping something. So practicing around the house, if they pick up like a flip-flop or something, teaching them drop, and then when they drop it, immediately rewarding them. So they want to know that they're going to get paid for being a good boy or a good girl. Do you have any thoughts on products marketed as dental chews? Is there a difference versus a typical chew? So yes and no. So with, say, no hide chews, bully sticks, any sort of natural chew like that, there's going to be some mechanical kind of brushing of the teeth as they're biting down. So it's kind of going to scrub the teeth. Dental chews that are more specific, so you'll see that like veterinary seal on them. Those will often have added enzymes. So those enzymes will actually help to clean up that bacteria, to essentially really eat the bacteria on their teeth, that can lead to plaque and tartar. So when you're really looking for something a little step up, not just that brushing action, then we recommend going with a dental chew that has added enzymes. So that's kind of the difference there. As far as dental care in general, I think of it kind of like a pyramid. The best way to keep our pets' teeth nice and clean and healthy is going to be brushing. That's certainly something that you want to introduce when they're puppies, as soon as possible. But again, it's something that you can work on even if you adopt an older dog, or an adult dog. It's something you can get them used to slowly, but always reward. My trainer always says this, right? I would not like to go to work without getting paid necessarily, right? If you're doing all of these wonderful things and never getting a paycheck, eventually you're going to be like, well, why am I working? So think of it the same way with our pets. When they're being good, when they're, dropping things, making sure that, again, we're keeping them safe. If they will drop something, we want to make sure that we pay them so they know that we appreciate it and that was the perfect thing to do. So always pay our dogs for being good. Any other questions? All right. Well, we thank you guys so much for joining. I hope this information was helpful. Again, please head into the stores. Our Pet Food Express friends were some of the very first to graduate through Chew School. Thank them for sharing their experiences. It helped make this content here today for you even better and enhance that. And again, thank you to all the rescues this month and who are doing such tireless work to help heal the animals in their care and provide homes for them, hopefully forever homes. And to thank you for everybody who's bringing them into their families. We hope for record adoptions this year. And now, of course, lots of chew safety. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.